Have you ever pressed a remote and wondered if it would actually respond? Sometimes a gentle click works, other times you press harder and nothing happens. The same motion over and over, frustration building up with every year of use. And then you start asking yourself, is it the battery, your fingers, or the remote itself? The truth is, I already have a plan to deal with this problem. So don't worry anymore. Let's get started. A moment ago, I pressed the power button on the remote and noticed it felt noticeably weak. Surprisingly, scientists point out that even though this button isn't used the most, it actually endures the most pressure. Still, before jumping to conclusions, there's one thing we should always check first. Because the most likely reason is simply that the batteries inside the remote are running out of power. It's incredibly convenient to have a voltage tester like this at home. It helps you check batteries, test power sources, and detect problems before devices fail. Small, easy to use, but extremely useful in everyday life. When I looked at the number on the screen, something suddenly came to mind. Just a little over a month ago, I had already replaced the batteries in this remote. Which means, logically, these batteries should still be in perfectly good condition. And sure enough, the voltage reading confirms it, they're completely fine. But that's okay. This step wasn't pointless at all. Because it helps us eliminate the most common cause people usually suspect first. Dead batteries. And once the batteries are ruled out, the conclusion becomes much clearer. And at this point, the only thing left that could be causing the problem is the remote itself. So we're going to dig deep, piece by piece, taking it apart and checking every detail along the way. That said, we won't waste time on unnecessary parts. Our focus will be strictly on the two most critical components of the remote, the TV control circuit board and the rubber keypad. And there's one problem most of us tend to ignore, even assuming it doesn't exist at all. But in reality, it's right here. When you look at the control board or the rubber keypad, you can't see the thin layers of dust silently building up inside. Those invisible particles are exactly what make the remote less responsive, less smooth over time. And to truly fix it, there's only one solution: proper cleaning. Can you believe this? Normally, we only think of apple cider vinegar as something used in cooking or for health. But today, I'm going to use it to clean the control circuit and the rubber keypad. Here's why it works. Apple cider vinegar contains mild acid, strong enough to break down built-up dust, skin oils, and oxidation residue on electronic contacts. More importantly, it cleans effectively without damaging components like harsh chemicals would. Once those contact points are clean, the signal flows smoothly again, and the buttons regain their responsiveness. This isn't a random trick. It's a practical application of simple chemistry in everyday life. To be honest, wiping everything slowly with paper towels like this takes quite a bit of time. Luckily, I already have a heat gun ready to speed things up. But if you don't have one, don't get discouraged. With a bit of patience and the right method, you'll still get the same result. The control board is now completely clean. No more hidden dust, no more interference. And the final step is simple: I'll clean the rubber keypad the exact same way. Once the two most critical parts are spotless, this remote is basically brought back to life. Did you notice how worn out the power button is? That's actually the real root of the problem. And after fully cleaning the control board, we'll deal with this part properly, so the remote can work exactly the way it's supposed to again. In my hand is a box of matches. I know, it sounds unbelievable already, doesn't it? But don't jump to conclusions just yet. What most people don't realize is that the powder on the tip of a matchstick can actually be reused to fix a worn-out power button. By mixing this powder with liquid glue, we can create a thin padding layer that restores the button's responsiveness. If this still sounds confusing and you can't quite picture how it works, don't look away. Focus closely on every move I'm about to show you. Alright, the glue is completely dry. Now comes the moment everyone's been waiting for. I'll carefully put the remote back together piece by piece just like when I took it apart. And right after that, we'll test it to see whether this little trick actually works, or if it was just a risky experiment. It's really responsive now, one press and it works instantly. If you've ever struggled with a remote that works one moment and fails the next, you'll understand this feeling. What looked like a worn-out, almost useless device is now back to life, thanks to a few careful checks, proper cleaning, and one small trick most people would never think of. The key here isn't just fixing the remote, but understanding the real cause of the problem. Instead of guessing or replacing it too quickly, taking the time to inspect and fix the root issue can save both money and frustration. Sometimes, broken things at home aren't as complicated as they seem, we just need to look a little closer. If you found this tip helpful, don't forget to like the video so I know you enjoy this kind of content. If your remote has similar issues, leave a comment below. I read them all. And make sure to follow the channel because the next video might just bring another everyday item in your home back to life.